Yo guys, what is going on? It is your boy Jamestheace. Welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a vent video. It is going to be a civilized vent video. I don't really want to well, I know you guys see the title, right? So you guys know what I'm going to be talking about in this video, but I want to put out that I am not trying to sympathize with people who go off on deep ends and say weird things, you know, threaten people, and particularly the devs. I've seen screenshots of Wizard101 weirdos saying things like, I hope they get fired, things like that. I'm not trying to sympathize with anyone going off the deep end saying any sort of like random nonsense, right? I don't think that that's constructive at all, and it goes in one ear and out the other. But I am trying to be 100% constructive. There will be some emotional feedback in this video just because of how frustrated I am with the state of the game right now. But I digress. We want to move forward. So we are talking about the Wizard101 devs, in particular the PvP devs, or the devs in charge of PvP, and kind of, you know, the inner workings, making big changes, etc., right? So if you guys aren't caught up to speed, basically what is happening right now is that Wizard101 is currently in its 5th age of PvP. This usually happens, you know, every year, every other year. We'll move to another, you know, new age of PvP, and more often than not, those ages come with some pretty big changes. Now, one of the biggest changes that Kingsisle has made to 5th age PvP is that there are no damage enchants whatsoever, and this is to balance DPP. If you don't know what DPP is, that stands for damage per pip. Basically, you know, the damage as represented on your card is supposed to align perfectly with your school, yada yada yada. It's supposed to return school identity, you know, make schools defenses and offenses shine brighter, etc., etc. You get the point, right? Now, with the plethora of tools and arsenals that certain schools have at their disposal, obviously this was not going to be a one clean said and done thing. Hey, I changed this, it should do this, we're fine. Obviously not. It is Wiz. There's always something to be audited, changed, you name it. This game's been out for 12 years, and PvP is like only recently in the last couple of years has begun to be touched by the devs. Now, there have been a plethora of obvious glaring problems, and the devs have stated multiple times, right? And I only bring this up because, you know, I sit back and I question, you know, are people watching, you know, my videos or other videos created by other, you know, WizTubers ever like sit back themselves and think, wow, like Wiz players complain a whole lot? And you know, I wonder about that, because the devs have literally given confirmation that there has to be a large quantity of noise, aka complaints, in a certain area in order for there to be a quote unquote, you know, emergency audit, fix, patch, whatever have you.
What are my thoughts on Jin's defense? I don't have a lot of thoughts on Jin's defense. At least my thoughts generally aren't steered by player complaints. Players complaining about things is par for the course. It has to reach a certain amount of noise before it becomes something to consider. But I think Jin's defense is fine.
So knowing this, right? And that clip I just showed you was like very recent. It was like 5 days ago from the making of this video. And that is the lead designer, Ratbeard, as he is known by in the Wizard101 community. You know, that was from his stream, and as the lead designer, I would assume that his words have merit over a lot of other developers or, you know, other WizTubers, right? So obviously complaining in mass quantities yields some sort of merit, you know, you would think, right? So complaining in mass quantities, if there's a lot of people complaining about one certain thing and the data is kind of showing that, you would obviously think, okay, something is probably going to be done about this, right? The problem is there are so many problems, and the way that the seasons work right now is they're running for about 2 to 3 months, and the devs are leaning towards only making changes in between seasons unless there's something like an exploit. But the problem is there are so many players in the game currently that are willing to use the tools that are keeping other players out So when the data is looked at, it's almost like nobody is being affected by this at all, other than people who are obviously not doing PvP because of said problems, right? Problems being like trap stack, PvE strategies, blade stack, the Mandar strategy at max, people abusing an exploit, like an actual exploit that I'm pretty sure the devs knows in the game. Basically, you can affix a square jewel that has pierce on it, so people are getting an extra 6% pierce. That is a blatant exploit that still hasn't been fixed, or a patch, you know, has come out for it. And there has been like 3 or so patches since the 5th age update has come out. You know, there's pierce enchants that is, it's pretty much like, you know, like a mini surge. Any open hit is a hit with no resist if you pierce enchant it. There's a lot of problems in the game, and there are a lot of players that aren't wanting to bend the knee and conform to the meta because it's just annoying. It doesn't promote fun PvP. Literally all of the PvP that is being done in my particular league, Exalted, is Ice PvP, because Ice has 7,000 health and every other school can barely breach. I think Life barely gets 6k. I think on my balance I'm almost reaching 6k, but Ice has 1,000 more health than every other school. All of them are running Myth Mastery, Jin's defense spamming, and they already have natural Rochambeaus to take off weaknesses, so it's not like that works either. And, you know, TC Lord of Winter, the Blue Phoenix TC that obviously needs to be PvP banned because its counterpart, I won't say counterpart, but it's pretty much the same thing as Arcticzilla, and that was already banned. So there are a lot of problems, not just in the Exalted League, in every league. In Legendary and 50, you have Decathlon, and I'm gonna play for you guys what Ratbeard said about that.
I don't tend to think that the problem is entirely on the deck itself. I think it also has to do with some of the spells, in particular treasure cards, which come with a free blade, and probably won't.
So basically, it's not the fact that people who are in PvP doing PvP, because, you know, you've said this before, it's not really like a roast or anything, but you, Ratbeard, are bad at PvP. You do not do PvP. I've seen you do PvP in the game before, and you yourself have even stated that you're just not good at it, right? So I would beg to differ that the opinions of people who are doing PvP, you know, actively, myself and countless other, you know, like WizTubers and people who are obviously in the queue, right? If the data is there, making opinions on PvP and things killing fun hold more merit than what you might rationalize in your head and chalk it down to design, right? If design is killing PvP, it's killing the fun, it's killing people wanting to do PvP in 5th age, is it actually a good thing? Is it not worth actually putting out a hotfix? Because as of right now, we have to wait 2 to 3 months to see anything if it's not a literal exploit, as I think you said on the timeline on Twitter. But there's literally an exploit in the game already, and we haven't seen anything to solve that. So my question is, like what is it? How much noise? Do we need the entire community to bombard you guys like they did with Spellements? Because that happened in like the next week. You guys made 14 Spellements drop from thin air every battle, and that was ridiculous. It was like Christmas, right? But when there's literal things in PvP that multiple players, people who are in the queue experiencing PvP, such as myself and countless others, in multiple leagues, telling you this is the problem, this is why it's the problem, don't touch this because we know what kind of developer you are, and we know that you're going to try to circumvent the problem. Actually, really quick, I want to state something that Dakota said. And I know a lot of people have opinions on Dakota Earthhorn, this and that and the other, right? But he said something that's kind of true, right? When we're talking about Ratbeard specifically, Ratbeard is the type of developer, when presented with a problem, that will call the open door. Ratbeard is the type of developer to try to bust down the wall next to the door, right? If Decathlon is the problem, you know, it can't be the health, the extra jewel sockets, the stats that are afforded to the player, the extra 500 health. it's the TC. It's definitely, if we gut all the TC, Decathlon is no longer OP. That is not the problem. It's the stats. It's the things afforded to the player. But, you know, Mandar is not the problem. It's not the fact that if you get a myth running the Mandar strat, there's a 95% chance you are going to lose unless they deck fail. It's the fact that we need to give everybody 100% Supernova TCs. That's the solution. We need to take tools away from balance that make balance unique, because that is something you would do. That is literally something you would do. But this isn't supposed to be an attack video. This is supposed to be a vent video, you know, a constructive feedback / vent video. What is it going to take? We have players that are actually in PvP giving valid feedback, telling you about these things, and you're trying to circumvent the problem by adding additions to the game that we don't have deck space for. We only have limited deck space. You're already forcing us to cram writing the scales for trap stacking and eye of vigilance for blade stacking, unless you're a school that has natural counter Rochambeaus, this, that, and the third. What is it, man? It's getting tiresome. We're having to wait 2 to 3 months in between seasons to see updates to these things, and even exploits aren't getting fixed. And I know there are people out there saying, you know, James, they're devs, they're working their hardest, they can only work so fast. Please, I ask you to put those comments aside, because it's been 12 years with this game, dude. And I know Ratbeard hasn't been, you know, the lead designer for all these 12 years, but you still have to take that into account, man. It's ridiculous. A lot of these players are tiresome, and I don't think the things that we're asking to have changed are super big. And I know there are a lot of people making, you know, unreasonable complaints and asking unreasonable things, but I don't think the things that most people are complaining about is unreasonable. It's just ridiculous, man. Like, I don't want a PvP right now because Ice in my league is unbeatable. Blue Phoenix TC, and that's not just at Exalted, that's at Max too. But, you know, I digress. It's just kind of ridiculous, man. At what point is PvP going to be fun? At what point does design not outweigh, you know, what everybody thinks is killing the fun of the game, the fun of PvP, the enticing factor that makes someone want to enter a balanced meta? Because right now, I guarantee you, if you logged on the dev Twitter and booted up a poll about some of the opinions that you have, players would disagree. And it's super aggravating, and I could be going off the hook saying, you know, this, that, and the third, but I want to keep this as civil as possible. But it is really frustrating. It is really frustrating because every time something absurd happens, every time something is abused, and it's often more than not something that players have complained about for months on end, the finger gets pointed at you. And I understand that players complain about, you know, stupid things like, oh, you made my pet no PvP, my pet card no PvP, but this isn't one of those things, man. It's really ridiculous. You know, 2 to 3 months for a change that may or may not even come, and players are just kind of forced, you know, to deal with it, or we're told that, you know.
Well, you're bad at it, is what you're saying. You're bad at it. The meta changed underneath your feet, and you haven't adapted to it yet.
So I don't know. It's really frustrating. I think that this is something that definitely I needed personally to get on here and vent about, use my platform to talk about this, because I don't really think that a lot of other people are going to. Please, like, something change. Like, this is not it. It's just not. I already canceled my membership because of the state of the game and the decisions as of recent of the devs. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You guys had some amazing changes, but you made one big change, and we're waiting 3 months to maybe see a fix to some problems, of which there are many.